And we're live.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Good evening. It is 7:05 p.m. A quorum is present, so I'm hereby calling this regular membership meeting of the 46th Legislative District Democrats to order. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded on our YouTube channel. If you do not wish to appear on the live stream or recording, I suggest that you turn off your camera. I know that given the current state of the nation and how social media is being used and combed, don't begrudge anyone who feels more comfortable with their camera off. That being said, thank you for joining us tonight. Please note that all attendees will be muted during the meeting, but individuals will be taken off mute when they're recognized to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. That being said, if you have an interrupting motion, such as a point of order or a request for information, please use the speed up button on your Zoom reactions. That's the blue circle with the two white greater than symbols in it. And then once you come off mute, all you have to do is immediately state your motion. You don't have to go into why you're making the motion. That will come just afterwards. And that being said, also please note that I will not be able to review the chat messages to me. So please don't message me there. The best way to get my attention is to actually raise your hand or use the speed up button. However, if you have any questions or concerns during the meeting, you can chat with our support volunteers, which would namely be our effective meetings chair, Nathan Antonio. However, sometimes we have some other volunteers helping him out, and he'll let you know if that's the case here shortly. All right, so to get us started, I'd like to welcome one of our rules co-chairs, Margaret Shield, who offered to provide us with our land acknowledgement. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the 46th District Democrats, I acknowledge the land on which we stand today as the traditional home of the Coast Salish and Duwamish tribes and the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, Snoqualmie, and Muckleshoot nations. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We recognize their invaluable contributions to our state, our history, our economy, and our culture. We respect their tribal sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and the water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistake and trespasses and bring about a future that includes their people, story, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I'd also like to let our members know that the 46th District Dems is a contributor to Real Rent Duwamish, which calls on people who live and work in Seattle to make rent payments to the Duwamish tribe. While our city, named after their chief, continues to thrive, the tribe has yet to be justly compensated for their land, resources, and livelihood. And you can do something to stand in solidarity with the First Peoples of this land by paying real rent at realrentduwamish.org. All funds will go directly to Duwamish Tribal Services to support the revival of Duwamish culture and the vitality of the Duwamish tribe. All right, tonight we're gonna take a break from our normal to hear from some of our candidates that have announced for the upcoming races. With us tonight, as you'll see on the agenda, it's been updated. We'll hear from candidates for King County Assessor, King County District 2, and Seattle City Council District 5. Up first, we'll hear from Rob Foxcurran, who is running for King County Assessor. Rob, you'll have 2 minutes to address our body. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Am I unmuted? Good to go. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, and let's get going. Good evening. My name is Rob Foxkern, and I'm running for King County Assessor. I grew up in this district. My parents and in-laws still live here. I graduated from Roosevelt before graduating from the UW. This is home. Now, whether you rent or own your home, costs keep rising, and property taxes are a part of that story. The assessor doesn't set tax rates, but they do determine the value of every property in the county. Those values shape what you pay. That's why I'm running. This is a technical office that requires real expertise to run well. I am the only candidate in this race that has spent over a decade as a certified general real estate appraiser. After spending most of my career in the private sector, I currently serve as the City of Seattle's senior appraiser. For the past 3 years, I served as a hearing examiner on the King County Board of Appeals and Equalization. There, I watched corporate landowners pay teams of consultants to help slash their tax bills. I've seen this system from every seat at the table. I know where it works, and I know where it falls short. King County currently ranks near the bottom nationally in commercial tax fairness. When the wealthiest corporations don't pay their share, that tax burden shifts directly onto your shoulders. We need an expert, not a politician, to balance these scales. My plan for real affordability includes 3 core shifts. First, we need modernized payments. No more massive lump sums. I will fight for monthly payment options so families can actually budget. Second, I'm pushing for a universal homestead exemption and a system that ties property taxes to income so no one is ever taxed out of their own neighborhood. And third, I will use the full authority of this office to identify surplus land for housing. Today, I live on Beacon Hill with my wife and daughter, who I'm proud to say is a 6th-generation Seattleite. Like so many families in King County, we care deeply about whether this region remains a place where people can put down roots and stay. I'm Rob Foxcurran, and I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. I forgot to mention that Nathan Antonio, our support person, has a timer in the corner. So if people want to be aware of that, and then he's got some great music that'll play. If we can get 2 more minutes on there, Mr. Antonio. I failed to mention that, so I was not as strict, but next time when the 2 minutes hit, we will mute you just to try to be fair. And please try to remind me that we allowed an extra 10 seconds if we hear from anyone else from King County Assessor. All right, up next, we'll hear, and thank you, Mr. Foxcurran, for giving us your time this evening. If you have a link or anything like that you would like to share with our membership, please go ahead and send it to, I believe, is it PCO Lisa Levy is handling our chat tonight, Nathan Antonio? All right, so Rob, if you're still with us and you have a link or info you want to share, you can send it to Lisa Levy, who would send it to all of our membership. And that goes for all candidates in the room. All right, thank you. Up next, we'll hear from King County Council District 2 candidate, Toshiko Hasagawa. Toshiko, thanks for joining us.
Hello, can you get my audio? You hear me? Okay, let's go. Good evening. My name is Toshiko Hasagawa. I'm a 4th-generation Seattleite, and I'm also your Port of Seattle Commissioner running for King County Council District 2 to build a government that will finally put people first. My family story is rooted right here, from my great-grandfather's resilience after being incarcerated in an American concentration camp to my parents fighting in the labor movement on a union salary. Today, I'm raising my own 2 children in Beacon Hill, but I see the reality. The lack of affordability is pushing our neighbors out, and we need county government to act with the urgency that this moment demands. I spent 5 years working inside King County government, and I have a unique understanding of what this county can and should do. I know where the gaps are. I know how to close them. My vision for our future is built on a simple framework: economy, environment, and equity. That means we aren't just going to talk about housing and affordability. We are going to take action to solve it by taking the land that King County already owns through the light rail and bus lines and turning it into 100% affordable homes. We're going to make sure that no parent is forced to choose between a paycheck and their child's education and childcare by finally fighting for childcare as a public priority. And we're going to get this region moving again by fast-tracking the Rapid Ride R line that makes our buses safe and more reliable for thousands of workers. And we're going to build truly safe neighborhoods by investing in the community programs that stop gun violence before it starts. In a time of deep uncertainty at the national level, King County must be a sanctuary for progress. And in 4 years, we have transformed the Port of Seattle into a powerhouse for progressive policy. I'm ready to bring that same energy to the King County Council. My name is Toshiko Hasagawa, and I'm asking for your vote to build a county where every neighbor has the opportunity to stray and thrive. I just want to put out an acknowledgement that at UW, there was also a kidnapping by ICE of a student on Greek Row, and there's a vigil happening now. My thoughts are with them.
All right. Thank you so much, Toshiko, for taking the time to address our members and let us know about your campaign. Really appreciate it. Up next, we'll hear from Seattle City Council District 5 candidate, Nilu Jenks. Nilu, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Hi, all. It's good to be here. I don't know if you want to start a timer. Is it? I don't see one. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Nilu Jenks, and I'm running for Seattle City Council District 5. I'm very glad to be here as someone who has been active in this space for years and who is proud to call the 46th my home. I'm the daughter of Iranian immigrants and a working mom of 2 teenagers. My life and work have always centered on the belief that communities are strongest when we show up for each other and when we work together to build a better tomorrow. In my neighborhood of Lake City, we've seen what happens when systems fall behind. Our local Fred Meyer closed last fall, and families lost access to a grocery store and our last pharmacy. Buses don't always arrive when people need them to go to work or to school, and more neighbors are losing housing and becoming unsheltered. But this isn't just in Lake City. These challenges are showing up across District 5 and across Seattle. These are not distant policy debates. They're real daily realities that shape whether people feel secure and are able to build their lives here. Seattle is a city with strong progressive values, and we have to show that we can translate these values into real results that keep pace with the needs of people who live here. And that's why I'm running. On City Council, my focus will be simple: turning our shared values into real outcomes, building affordable homes, addressing our food deserts, becoming a child-friendly city, and leading on climate in ways that improve daily life. And I know we can do that with increasing great union jobs. And because trust in government grows when people can see it working for them, I know that we have to do this right now, at a time when the trust in government has been lost and in democracy. I'm honored to have the endorsement of our own Representative Daria Farivar, who I'm very lucky to work with in the legislature, and other local leaders. And if you believe in the work ahead for democratic leadership in our cities, I hope you'll join me by sending your democracy vouchers to this campaign or getting involved at neighborsfornilu.org. I'm Nilu Jenks and running for Seattle City Council District 5, and I'd be honored to earn your support. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Nilu, for joining us tonight and letting us know more about your campaign and why you're running. And again, to all candidates in the room, please send any links or contact information you wish to share with our membership to *PCO Lisa Levy, who will then share that with our membership. Thank you all. Up next, we have our 2026 legislative review. We are honored to have Senator Javier Valdez, Representative Jerry Paulette, and Representative Daria Farivar here with us tonight to talk about the work that they did in 2026, and then might have a little bit of time for questions if they're able to stick around. That is the limitation. I just wanted to make that clear with you, Senator Valdez and Representatives Paulette and Farivar. You have the floor. Thank you for your time this evening.
Who's going first, Chair Hunter?
Oh, Javier.
Oh,
All right.
sure. I'm happy to go first. Well, good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody. Yeah, we just finished our quick, well, somewhat quick 60-day legislative short session here last Thursday night. I will say in my short sessions, this was probably the most grueling one in my tenure here in the legislature. I would say first, for me, bills that I worked on that I was able to pass. The first one is the one I started working on last summer. We all saw what was going on with in particular, our federal ICE officials when they were, intimidating, causing fear, and really disrupting our communities, masking up while they were in their official course of duties. So I started working on a bill that made it very clear, not just our federal law enforcement officials, including ICE, but also our state, local, and law enforcement officials will not be able to mask up while they're and hide their identities in their official course of duties. So I started working on the bill last summer, finally got the drafts ready in December, worked with stakeholders throughout that tenure, and then dropped the bill right before the session started. And I'm pleased to say that on Thursday, this coming Thursday, in 2 days, the governor will sign that bill into law. It was really really happy and proud to get this bill across the finish line. There were some of very few exceptions that we made, in particular regarding medical situations, or especially with, officers who may be on their motorcycle in their duties or in a helicopter. Obviously, we want to make sure that they're not going to be compromised on their safety in that regard. And so we were able to do that. This bill somewhat differs from what the California law that was passed as well several months ago. You may have heard the California law was had some issues in the federal courts. This bill is actually different. The California lawsuit, that bill was only limited to federal law enforcement, but my bill actually, and the judge actually had said that if it had been more broader and was more expansive and also included other law enforcement officials, the judge may have ruled differently. My bill, which was worked on while the California case was still going on, actually includes, of course, both state and local as well as federal. So obviously, we anticipate this bill being challenged in court, but we feel very strongly that this will hold up. But we want to, of course, making sure that if law enforcement officials are going to interact with the public, they cannot hide their identity while they're at work. It was very interesting to note that as this bill was being moved forward, we kept hearing from some of the pro law enforcement organizations about, well, this doesn't occur for our state and local; they don't mask up. But actually, there was an incident in Spokane in late January where it was documented and made the front page of the Spokesman Review paper that there was an event in Spokane in late January where officers were Spokane local law enforcement were found to be masking up while were performing their duties. So, and unfortunately, so it did happen as well as for our state and local folks. So, was really proud of that. I think I'm happy to take more questions. But you've all heard about one of the other big bills we passed was the millionaires tax that passed in the last days of the session. And I think another big bill that passed that got a lot of attention was the election of sheriffs in our state, where now they will have to show that they have certain make sure that they're actually qualified and have the certifications in order to be a sheriff. I actually do sit on the Senate Law and Justice Committee, and when that bill was being heard, you may have read or heard about the Pierce County sheriff openly threatening not only our committee members but also threatening to show up with his I guess his team, his posse, whatever you want to call it, to show their disapproval on this bill as it was moving forward. So that definitely was quite an interesting hearing that we had that day. And lastly, I'll just say before I move to Reps Paulette and Farvar and answer your questions. I do able to chair the state government and elections committee in the state Senate. We were able to pass some really good bills regarding more outreach for our tribal governments. We passed a bill making sure that if voter challenges are going to take place, that you have to be very specific about what that voter challenge is about, and this can't be frivolous, and that person has to be actually from the same county that that voter is challenged. And we also passed a strengthening our Voting Rights Act bill here in Washington State. And we passed a very important bill regarding ensuring that our state voter database remains in the state of Washington, and only our Secretary of State is authorized to release that voter database. And local auditors cannot just do that on their own if they get a request, for example, from the federal government. So we really strengthened our laws there to ensure that right now the federal government cannot overreach and get access to our federal voter database. So, I mean, our overall database. Obviously a lot more. We're going to be having a town hall, I think, sometime mid next month. But I'll turn it over either to Rep. Paulette and Rep. Farvar. They have any comments, and then happy to take questions in the time that we have left.
Please, you go first.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Great to see you all, and great to be with you all tonight. Obviously, it was a very interesting legislative session this year. A couple of my highlights, we'll start with the big one here, which is passing the millionaire's tax, and the 24.5-hour debate that I will say we endured on the House floor. It was really important, though, to make sure that we were able to have the full conversation. We were able to hear everyone out from all different shades of blue on our end, and also hearing from the Republicans as well what their concerns were. I'm really, really proud of the work that the Finance Committee did on that bill, and proud that both myself and Representative Paulette were part of the debate and trying to fend off amendments and staying up for those more than 24.5 hours, truly. I think we were all up for about 36 hours at that point, and so it made for quite an interesting experience on the floor. I'm sure you all have seen plenty of the coverage, and some of the funny but not necessarily flattering photos of me that came from that very, very long debate. I learned a lesson about wearing bright colors when there are big bills on the floor. At any rate, this is the first important step that we can take to trying to flip our upside-down tax code. Now, with the passage and establishment of the capital gains tax, we're no longer 50th in the country, but we're 49th. Hopefully, we're making steps forward to be even less regressive with this millionaire's tax, and with the great amount of funding that is going to be going towards things that we all care about, like education. And I'm going to let Rep. Paulette talk about the great work that he has done to that end to really make sure that the funding from this goes towards our priorities. We did a lot of other good things as well. Along the vein of community safety, Senator Valdez talked about the sheriff's bill. I was very proud to be part of the leadership on the House team that ensured that that got across the finish line. That was also a very interesting debate, and I think when we started the evening, we had about 50 amendments on that bill compared to the 80 amendments on the millionaire's tax. And so these were things that were hard fought to get out of the House, and I think it can't be overstated enough that the most important thing that that sheriff's bill does is make sure that our law enforcement leaders, whether they're sheriffs or police chiefs or marshals, I guess there's one town in Washington that has a marshal in particular, that all of them are subject to the same requirements as officers. They should not be subject to lower standards than the officers that they are overseeing. And this just requires them to be on par with that. Very, very important bill, given the interesting things that are happening in Washington state and this concept of constitutional sheriffs, which the sheriff that presented before the Senate committee and shared some pretty heinous remarks with the committee is someone who would describe themselves as a constitutional sheriff. We have another sheriff up in Adams County that also declares themselves a constitutional sheriff, meaning someone that is following the Constitution and what they see, or what they interpret as what the Constitution says of Washington State and the United States. In my research and advocacy on this legislation, I was actually had a letter shared with me from just a few years ago that all sheriffs except for one in Washington state said that they signed onto or would have signed onto had they been in office at the time, that really, I think, articulates the need for this. It is not just about the times that we are in and these concerns that we have about immigration and harassment of vulnerable communities. It is also things that we might consider as basic as enforcing extreme risk protection orders. Those sheriffs, all but one in this state, said that they were not going to enforce extreme risk protection orders, which is not just a law that the legislature passed, but actually an initiative that many of you might remember. So this is an incredibly, incredibly important bill that we got across the finish line this year. To complement that bill, we were also able to clarify the Attorney General's tools that they have available for law enforcement. Another bill that had about 30 amendments on it that I'm very proud to have been working on for 4 years in the legislature and a couple years before that as well, that we were finally able to pass this year too. And this legislation really makes sure that the Attorney General's office has the same tools that they have available under the Consumer Protection Act to issue civil investigative demands, which is basically a demand for information, from state agencies, from private business, from individuals across the state to uphold the rights under our state constitution, our federal constitution, the Washington Law Against Discrimination, wage theft, labor rights, so many important pieces of law, including keep Washington working. So this is going to be a critical piece to make sure that things like the mask ban, the sheriff's bill are all working as they should, and make sure that our Attorney General's office is able to actually step up and protect Washingtonians. I will end with just a couple of things and talk about grocery stores. As you all know, I live just a couple of blocks away from the former Fred Meyer in Lake City, and myself and really all three of us have been working hard this session to try and make sure that that is at the forefront of what we are doing, not just fighting for flipping our upside down tax code, not just fighting for justice for immigrants and other vulnerable communities, but also trying to make sure that our most basic need, access to food, can be available to everyone regardless of the zip code that you live in. We introduced 5 pieces of legislation about grocery stores this year. All of them ambitious, exciting proposals, and unfortunately only one of them was able to get across the finish line this year. The one that we were able to get across the finish line this year is an important protection that the city of Seattle has made sure that we have, but that the rest of the state needs to have too, which prohibits groceries and pharmacies, as they are deciding to close up their private business and leave, from putting a covenant on the property. In the conversations that I had with Kroger, I can tell you it is their regular practice, once they are ready to sell a building and leave a community, to put a covenant on the property so no other grocery store can come and serve in that place. That is a surefire way to create a food desert in our lower income, working class communities, all of the different stores that we saw close this year across the state and beyond. So we will now have that protection on the book for every Washingtonian. Next year, you're probably going to see some more work on grocery stores. I'll at least speak for myself and say the 2 other pieces of legislation I introduced will be coming back. We developed a really incredible coalition that spans the spectrum of folks that are working in the grocery community, from small culturally owned businesses to the big guys like Kroger, to our nonprofits, and everyone in between, to really try and figure out how do we address this in a way that is actually going to be responsive to our community needs, and that is responsive to the environment we live in, which is the reality that we rely on private business to deliver some of our most basic services and basic needs in the community. So if you're interested in more conversations on that, please reach out. More to come, including more conversations about what it might look like to have a publicly run grocery store, or create opportunities for local governments to purchase land and then lease it to private partners as well. The last 2 things, I want to highlight very briefly. We got one other major victory for the district this year, which is a $7 million investment in the capital budget to complete the housing project for the Lake City Community Center. I know all of us are breathing a small sigh of relief on the hard work that it's taken for us to get to this point, and we cannot wait to see that project come to fruition. And the very last thing I will say is thank you to so many of you in this community, in this room, that have reached out to me, concerned about me and my family, and about Iran. It does not go unnoticed. I greatly appreciate it. We've been doing a lot of advocacy and trying to uplift community voices in that right, to make sure that our congressional delegation understands that our communities do not want war with Iran. I'm happy to report that all members of our Democratic Washington State delegation voted for the War Powers Resolution just a few weeks ago and are holding to that principle and are hearing us out. So thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for checking in on me and my family. All right, Jerry, I took up too much time. Take it over.
I was afraid that you weren't going to mention the Fred Meyer and grocery store. So I have a big note here to say, Daria, don't forget our grocery store efforts. Um, uh, I'll start with Lake City, though, the community center and housing. The three of us and Senator Frock before us have been working on trying to make sure that we have a new community center in Lake City that is responsive to community needs. We are responsible, the three of us, for making that go forward, including ensuring that the city did work with the community and nonprofits to identify the community needs. There was a point in time where Rep. Farivar and I sat down with the Capitol Budget Chair and said, you can't give away the money, $2 million we've already given, if the city isn't going to work with the community to design the needs of the community center. And it's really exciting. This is going to be the first community center with, it'll have 110 units of affordable housing built on top of it. And we're talking about family units and a wide range of needs being met. And it's a vision that we have worked together, Senator Valdez, Representative Farivar, and I, and community groups for many years. Even when the city just wasn't willing to come along, we were there working on this, and this is the final brick of funding for it to happen. And we'll see it in place in a couple of years. So very exciting for that. Let me turn to the millionaire's tax. This is truly, I think, going to be the most historic legislation for a good number of years. I started being a member of the 46th District Democrats 35 years ago. My wife was chair for a decade, and I was vice chair. Throughout that period of time, the 46th District Democrats and the Washington State Democrats have said, we don't just need to make our revenue more fair. We need to ensure that we have an income tax as a solid, sustainable basis for progressive revenue in the state of Washington. And we're finally going to do it. And it wasn't easy. And the tip of the iceberg of it not being easy was the 25-hour Vote-A-Rama marathon. For people who don't follow this, let me just say, essentially what the Republicans did is that they didn't just have 80 amendments. They said they exercised their right to require us to be on the floor voting on each amendment at the drop of a hat, which meant that people could, if they were lucky, they could try to catch 5-minute naps off to the side. We had assignments. I was on duty from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. trying to make sure that people didn't miss a vote. And that was a day that the House Appropriations Committee started work at 8 a.m. To pass the operating budget. So for those of us on appropriations, and I think on finance too, we were at work at 8 a.m. and went through till 6 p.m. the following day. But a historic outcome. I had 3 principles that I was fighting for throughout the year, leading into the session and throughout the session on the millionaire's tax. First and foremost, working families and the lowest income residents of our state had to have real tax relief. A working mom with 2 kids earning $40,000 a year needs to have a reduction in her taxes so that she can afford something to keep her kids healthy and shelter and housing and food on the table better than she can now. And that's what tax reform looks like and progressive view, not just more revenue. And we met the goal of about half of the revenue going towards real tax reform. And what does that mean? It means when you go to the store, if you're buying diapers, you're buying hygiene products, you're buying over-the-counter drugs, everything at the supermarket, except for the alcohol and tobacco, is now not going to be taxed. That's huge. Secondly, 460,000 households will be added to getting the working families tax credit. Incredible expansion. The second principle was we couldn't do corporate giveaways in the middle of that. And that wasn't an easy fight. I joined with about a dozen progressive legislators, and basically we said, if you're going to give away hundreds of millions of dollars of the taxes, even before the millionaire's tax takes effect, we're not going to vote yes. We can't do that. We're supposed to be making the tax system more fair, and I'm very proud that we won. We stopped the corporate tax giveaway in the millionaire's tax. And the third thing I fought for was that we had to have a commitment in the millionaire's tax that we were going to use new funding to increase support for our paramount duty, which is our children's public education. And this should have been easy to win, because the only way we're going to pass this, we have to defend this at the polls. It has to pass the Supreme Court, which I'm confident it will, and we have to defend it at the polls. And the only way the public's going to vote for this is if we have real tax relief for people and if we're funding education. And incredibly enough, even, sorry to say this, Senator, but even as it passed the Senate, and even as it came out of our finance committee, the millionaire's tax said only, and it was only make a commitment to, quote, maintain current levels of education funding. We're going to generate $3.5 billion a year in new funding. It's not acceptable to me, and thank goodness wasn't acceptable to 50 House Democrats to only say we're going to maintain education funding at the current inadequate levels. And instead, we adopted, somewhere in the middle of the night, we adopted the amendment I wrote that said we're going to increase funding for basic education, our paramount duty, and we're going to use that money to improve the educational support from our educators and outcomes for our children. And that's really important. Turning from that, and let me just say, we have to defend this now. We have to unite and defend this. I just want to say on education, we had a brutal year in terms of the budget, which, despite the millionaire's tax, which won't kick in till 2028 or 29, we faced a $2 billion deficit, and we had a lot of fights about cuts in education. I'm very proud that I refused to go along with cuts to special education for infants and toddlers, and we removed that from the budget, which was originally in there, and then we've adopted language I proposed to preserve existing transition to kindergarten programs. So existing programs won't be cut, but we won't be expanding those programs for a year. And we had committed to expanding them, and that leaves a lot of children out who need early learning with experienced, trained educators. And then the final thing I'll say is major legislation I passed, which I'm very proud that the ranking Republicans on the House and Senate Education Committees said was the only education outcome-focused legislation in the last 3 to 4 years, is my bill to improve how we teach our children to read. 40% of our fourth graders are not reading at grade level. And we know why, because we don't train our teachers to use the methods to teach reading that are based on how science has shown people actually learn to read. And we've taken a huge step forward with this legislation to train our educators and to change the outcome and curve. If children aren't reading, the rest of their lives are going to be lost. And so this is a real game changer. With that, I'll stop and take some questions, I hope.
Yeah, thank you so much, Senator Valdez, Representative Poulet, and Representative Farivar for your work on behalf of our communities this year so far. And thank you for taking the time to meet with us. Yeah, we have time for questions, definitely. So since they're willing to take them, please raise your hand if you have questions. I also want to recognize that it is Nowruz. I think I pronounced that correctly, hopefully. If not, Daria, please correct me. But so I really appreciate you taking the time with us tonight, given that. I've got a hand up from Aiden Carroll and then Arvia Morris. Aiden?
Hi. Is anyone talking to the DOL about ceasing to share data with those who are sharing it with ICE? Because they keep saying we're not giving our data to ICE, but they're giving it to Axon and Flock, and they're giving it to ICE. And most of the abductions in the state are happening out of cars, like the one today in the U District. So someone needs to be talking to the governor about that. Are they already?
Well, the governor has been very proactive on this.
I
Shocked when we heard this. And we also have adopted very strong limits on flock cameras. Senator Valdez?
Yeah, thank you, Aiden, for the question. Actually, just a few days before the session ended, the Senate members of Color Caucus did have a meeting with the governor, and this was one of the topics that came up because this happened a few years ago regarding some of the information being through other vendors getting access to information. So we brought this up again to the governor. He did let us know again that he was really working to ensure with the Department of Licensing that all these gaps again once are addressed, and then so it's making sure that this does not happen again. I know he assured us that he's very on top of this, and of course it's not fun to see this make the news again, or to see one of our state agencies having our personal information being somehow other folks getting access to it through other parts. And so it is being addressed in our conversation with them. Good question.
All right, thank you. Arvia Morris.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for being with us, legislators. And my question's for Representative Farivar, but I just wanted to thank Senator Valdez for putting in the amendment to the transportation budget, even though it didn't get funded for the Amtrak Cascades projects. We really appreciate that you amended the Senate version of the transportation budget to include those projects. And we're hopeful that next year we'll have better luck, and we'll look forward to talk to you about that. But the question for Representative Farivar is, I was wondering if this covenant on the properties for the grocery stores, if it's retroactive. So the properties where they've already left or closed grocery stores, can that be undone and new grocery stores come in? Like at Lake City, can a new grocery store come in?
That's a great question. So the legislation is prospective only because it becomes unconstitutional if it goes retroactively and it gets into the complexities of contract law. We did look into that, and we looked around at the rest of the country to see if anyone else had done that, and they have not. They're all prospective only ordinances or pieces of legislation that have been passed. I will say that the Lake City Fred Meyer location will not have a covenant on it when it gets sold, thanks to this legislation, and also a personal commitment that I have from Kroger, and also because of the ordinance that the city of Seattle passed with an emergency clause on it to make sure that it was effective immediately. And so I think part of the issue here is we don't fully understand how big of a problem this is. It's very difficult to find out whether there is a covenant on a property or not. I've been working very closely with the Seattle team on this, and they have done tons and tons of research on different properties, and this information can be buried deep inside deeds. And so what we're trying to do is get ahead of it. Also, what we have done in this legislation is we have required a notice period. So as transactions are happening, the parties have 10 days to actually provide notice to the Attorney General's office, who's one of the entities that can enforce this on that transaction that's happening and any conversations about covenants. There are some select situations where they are exempted. For example, if they're moving within a half mile, they want to be able to protect that investment. If they are on one side of a mall, putting a covenant on that mall as they are residents, and if they're closing for renovation, those sorts of things. But it is a very interesting issue, and I think one that we have a lot more learning and research that we need to do on it. So I'm hopeful that this will start that conversation.
Thank you.
If I can add, Arvia, that there is another tool, the legislation that Rep. Farvar and I have, complements each other. And for the property sitting vacant, waiting for them, because Fred Meyer and Kroger was pretty blunt. This is a real estate investment. Just to be real clear, when they met with the three of us and County Council Member Dembowski, they made it very clear that Lake City Fred Meyer was not losing money. It is about their real estate and electronic commerce investments. And they can sit on it, in their view, forever, that property. And the legislation I introduced would not only provide notice to the community in advance of a closure, but it would also impose pretty steep vacancy excise taxes on them holding the property vacant when the community and the city's comprehensive plan have been based on having increased housing density because there is a full-service supermarket and pharmacy present. And if you hold it vacant, we can impose, under our proposed legislation, a nuisance fee of $250,000 an acre and a $500,000 an acre vacancy excise tax, changing the equation of keeping that store empty or that acreage empty.
Great. That's outrageous. It's terrible that they did that it's empty.
All right. Thank you. We have a question from Donald Gunderson. Donald.
Yes, with all these federal cuts, that came down, how have those been dealt with? It sounds like this must have been a big concern.
Someone else wants to jump in first there?
Sorry, I have to keep muting myself because there's a dog running around behind me. I will just say briefly that we have not felt the full impact of HR 1 yet. We are still trying to problem solve and figure out how to contend with the revenue shortfalls that are just a Washington particular problem right now, and that is much of the conversation in the legislation and the budget that we passed this year. The impacts of HR 1 are to come in these future years, including next year. I think these are going to start to hit home. But Paulette is on the appropriations committee and can probably share a bit more.
Senator Valdez, you want to?
Yeah, I will just echo what Rep. Farvar said. We're just now seeing the effects of all this, and you'll see in our budget, we are starting to do that first kind of that backfill, especially regarding healthcare, because of the consequences of HR 1. And obviously this was the second year of the biennial budget, so kind of the patchwork to fix last year's budget, and so we know in the 2027 session, the work is going to be even quite harder because we know our overall deficit in the budget to close that gap of where we are is going to be a little larger. and we know this is coming, unless we get a great economic forecast by the end of the year. So let's cross fingers.
With a war and Trump
Crossing fingers.
Not going to happen. But we had, in terms of the federal HR1 cuts, we know we're going to lose tens of thousands of people from Medicare and food assistance, Medicaid and food assistance. And on top of that, so that increases our caseload forecasts for emergency rooms and our basic health care plan, etc. At the same time, HR1 requires us to spend tens of millions of dollars that we, in the year where we have a deficit, tens of millions of dollars to show the federal government that we are following on whether or not people who get food assistance and Medicaid are qualified. And they required us to basically create whole new IT systems to track the rates of which people are working and otherwise qualified and re-upping for SNAP food benefits and Medicaid. At the same time, we're going to see tens of thousands of people losing health care because of this bastardly, pardon me, but it is, idea that if you don't sign up every 6 months for Medicaid and for food assistance, you're off. If you don't show that you're, working, and we're talking about the people who are least able to demonstrate this. It's really cruel. And our rural hospitals are desperate. It's ironic. In the Republican districts, they're the ones who are going to be hardest hit first. And they are saying, they asked, and we put money in to bail some of them out. Money that we don't really have. So we're barely being able to plug the holes in the dike on the federal government's actions.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to be cognizant of your guys' time. We have 2 more hands up. Do you have? Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to double check. Cody Zelensky, you had your hand up. And we're next.
Okay, great. There we go. All right. Anyway, I guess this question is for several of you, but for I think the past 4 years now, we've had bills introduced into the legislature regarding alternate voting systems. Like last year, I believe it was create standards for implementation of alternate voting systems. This year, I believe, once again, we had a reintroduction of a local options bill. And if I recall, last year, Representative Farvar, you were a great advocate for that, and I want to thank you very much. Obviously, it didn't seem like the local options bill went forward this year, but also also for Senator Valdez as chairman of the Government, Tribal Affairs, and Elections Committee. So, where does that stand currently? I'm just kind of curious what the instruction is with moving forward. I'm trying to at least even create standards for alternate voting systems.
At least, good question. At least for the Senate side, I think we're still waiting. I know there was a guy you said there were some bills introduced in the House. Rep. Farvar can probably give more information. I think she's you're the vice chair, Rep. Farvar, or you're on the committee in the House with state government and elections. But I know that there were bills in the House that made it through the House committee, and I don't think they got to they did not get to the floor. They did not get a floor vote on the House. Maybe Rep. Farvar can give a little bit more information on that, but so they did not make it over to the state Senate here in 2026, and let's see if that can happen again here for next session.
Yeah, part of the challenge that we were up against this year in the House is you could call it a backlog from last year on what I would categorize as emergency legislation that needed to be passed given the state of the world and Washington's specific challenges, to make sure that we pass this, I think what we're calling it, it's the voting power package on just those pieces of legislation that Senator Valdez was describing earlier, with the addition of a couple of other ones, for example, legislation around pre-clearance for jurisdictions that have had voting rights violations in the past. If they want to make changes to their voting system, then they would need to go through this pre-clearance mechanism. Now that we have passed those important emergency pieces of legislation, hopeful that we can go back and continue the work on ranked choice voting. As you know, there's a lot of support for it in the House. In these short sessions, unfortunately, so much of it just comes down to timing and what's on fire. How do we address the immediate crises that are popping up that we have to handle, and what else can we get through in addition to that? And I think this was just, unfortunately, a victim of not enough time. It's not a great answer, but that's the real answer. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you all. Up next, PCO Heather Heinickel. Heather.
Hi, thank you all so much for your work and for answering our questions and letting us know what's going on tonight. This question is for all of you, but especially I think Representative Pollitt, because I know how passionate you are about education funding. You mentioned earlier that you were able to save the kindergarten transition programs, and I'm just curious, are you talking about pre-K programs and like, would that include, for example, the parent education programs that, are also preschools that serve our community?
Yeah, so we have a program called Transition to Kindergarten, which is it's a public school program, not a child care program, not a Working Families Connection child care or ECAP program. But it's in our public schools, and it has great results because we're talking about, early learning educators who are providing classroom support. And frankly, in my view, this is what we need to be expanding to one day reach the point where early learning is part of basic education. It's not just childcare. And we were committed to expanding the slots, and instead, because of the budget deficit, we spent all session long fighting over how deep we were cutting Working Connections, childcare, and Transition to Kindergarten programs. The ECAP program, Early Childhood Education Achievers Program, is expanding with private support from the Balmer Group. And sadly, because of the budget, we had a lot of budget decisions from both House and Senate saying, well, if we're expanding those, we're going to cut Working Connections childcare, subsidized childcare, and Transition to Kindergarten. So what I was able to do is say, if the existing Transition to Kindergarten programs are not getting cut, so you're not going to lose your existing Transition to Kindergarten program at a public school in the state of Washington, just simply based on a budget cut. But we're not expanding them, and one day we will be back to expand that program. And then on parent educator programs, I'm meeting with the faculty at North Seattle College in the next 48 hours. We need to try to do what we can to try to save the parent educator programs. That is not a victim of a direct budget cut from the legislature. That is in part due to Seattle colleges having been cut a year ago, along with other colleges, and making decisions. And I'm going to be doing my best to try to save that program, working with the AFT Washington and parent educators.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm not seeing any other hands up. So I really want to thank Senator Valdez and Representatives Paulette and Farvar for joining us tonight. All of their work that they've done representing all of the communities within the 46 and advocating on their behalf, and for taking time out of their night to be with us this evening. So thank you all so much for joining us and providing us, a lot of insight as to what you've been working on and how you've been working on our behalf. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Hunter, if I can say before I go, thank you for the recognition of Nowruz. We celebrated at the Capitol this year. Well, I should say we recognized at the Capitol this year, given the complexities of what's happening in the Middle East and the literal war on Iran. Nowruz this year is on Friday morning. For those of you who want to set your alarm clock, 7:46 a.m. on Friday. Tonight, in the Zoroastrian tradition, we leap over a fire and we recite a poem that effectively says, "Fire, I give you my sickness, my illness, all of the badness, and I take your strength and your courage from you." And so if you get an opportunity, jump over a candle or something. I'll be doing that with my family here shortly. So thank you. Thank you for that recognition.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that sounds like a very fun. I don't know if it's the fun as practice, but a practice that I can see would be very beneficial for myself as well. So I'll be doing that tonight. So thank you for that suggestion.
Relevant in these times. Bye,
Yes.
y'all. See you around the neighborhood.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So up next on our agenda, we have a brief review of our Zoom practices before we get into our official business this evening. Nathan Antonio, you have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As Hunter said, I'm Nathan Antonio. I'm your Effective Meetings Chair. I'm also the one person you should be chatting if you need any assistance this evening. You can find me by looking at my name or just the word support in the participants window. I'm going to try to make the rest of this presentation as brief as possible. Firstly, please just remember that we have community agreements in this organization. You can see a summary of them here. They're intended to help us keep things civil, and most of them are very common sense. So please do exercise your common sense and common decency when interacting with everyone at this meeting. More information about the community agreements can be found in our standing rules. And this serves as your reminder that these meetings are conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order, which are very complicated and arcane. However, we want to promote participation from everyone who would like to participate in these meetings. So most important thing you can remember is, as Hunter reminded us at the top of the meeting, is if you have something you would like to introduce, please raise your hand, be that a question, a point of order, a motion, what have you. Once the chair recognizes you, we will take you off mute and you can go ahead and do what you got to do. We'll help you make sure that it is done according to the rules. Regarding raising hands, we're going to go over some of these things just because we have a lot of new members in the meeting today. So this is mostly going to be a reminder for folks. In order to raise your hand, in order to be recognized at these meetings, you are going to hover your cursor over the bottom of the Zoom window, and you should see an icon directly in there that says raise hand. It looks like a little hand. If you don't see that right away, you should see a more button that is like a circle with 3 dots in it. And if you click on that, you should see a raise hand symbol in there. So once you have that up, the chair will go through and recognize people to speak based on the order that they raise their hand. Because everyone is on mute by default at these meetings, you will have to look out for a prompt to unmute yourself. So just keep an eye out for that if you are recognized. For folks who are joining this meeting on the Zoom app on their phone, to raise your hand, it's a very similar process. Just look towards the bottom of the app, and instead there you'll see a reactions button, and then if you click on that, it'll open a submenu with an option to raise your hand there. This is just a reminder that If you are going to attend this meeting by dialing in, like actually dialing one of the phone numbers that Zoom offers you to like call on a line and listen to the meeting, please let us know in advance so that we can arrange a way for you to vote. If you're joining on your computer or using the app on your phone, you'll have no problem participating in votes. But if you are actually having to dial a number and just listen to the meeting, we don't have a ready way of having you participate in votes. So just let us know if that's going to be you ahead of time, and we'll figure out an accommodation for you. Okay, so before I go into this next part, I just want to advise everyone that we would normally have sent voting codes to everyone before the meeting. Like we usually do it the night before. However, we had a problem with the mass emailing system that we used for that last night, and we were unable to send out voting codes. In fact, we will be unable to conduct balloted votes at this meeting because of that. We will be able to rectify the issue in time for the next meeting, but we aren't able to do anything about it tonight. So if you were wondering where your voting code went, you have not missed anything. We were simply not able to send them. Thankfully, at least the items on the agenda shouldn't necessarily require a balloted vote. So with any luck, we'll be able to conduct all of the votes this evening with reaction voting, which I will now overview. So in order to vote on non-balloted votes, this is like the equivalent of being in a room and the chair calling for yays and nays. What you're going to do is look towards the bottom of your Zoom window, and you should see a button that says reactions in there. It looks like a little heart, and it actually says the word react next to it. If you don't see that bar with the icons right away, just hover your cursor over the bottom of the Zoom window. When you click on the react button, you'll see a bunch of options for different ways to react that come up. The green check indicates yes. The red X indicates no. And I'll add something that Hunter mentioned earlier in the meeting. If you believe you have an interrupting motion per Robert's rules, please use the blue circle with 2 forward arrows. So again, towards the bottom of the Zoom window, you're looking for a reaction button. If you don't see it right away, within the More menu, you should see it. And then of those options, the green check means yes, the red X means no, and the blue circle with the forward arrows means that you believe you have an interrupting motion. For folks who are joining on the app on their phone, process is very similar. You look towards the bottom of the app. You will see a React button down there that looks a little different, and that will pull up that submenu again with all the same options that I just described. Last technical thing I will just make sure everyone is aware of. We share a lot of information through the chat at these meetings. To access the chat, just like everything else I've described tonight, you will look at the bottom of your Zoom window. You're going to look for a chat button instead. If you don't see it in that bottom bar right away, look in the More menu again. The chat button it's like a speech bubble, and it has the word chat underneath it. And you click on that, it'll open up the chat in a side window. If you are on the phone, oh, sorry, let me go back one. Oh, I'm sorry, I neglected to include a picture of what this looks like on the phone. But if you're on the app on your phone, again, same process, just look towards the bottom of the app. You'll see a speech bubble with the word chat, and that'll pull up your chat window there. All right, and finally, just a quick reminder, there are a few people here who have either DEO or RN in front of their names as our credentials volunteers credentialed you. We also have a fair number of people with the letter G in front of their name. That means you're a guest. In any case, these are folks, if that's you, that means that you do not currently have an active paid membership with our organization, which means you're not able to vote. So please do renew your membership if you haven't already. If you were not a member last year, it will take, there will be a delay of 21 days before you're actually eligible to vote at a meeting. So if you hope to vote at the April meeting, please do that ASAP. If you were a member last year, your new membership will become active in 24 hours. So, and that's my spiel.
All right, thank you, Mr. Antonio. And just a reminder, I said this at the beginning of the meeting, but for folks that hadn't joined, I am not able to monitor the chat and pay attention to the proceedings of the meeting. So I'm focusing my attention here. So if you need to get my attention, the best way to do that is by raising your hand. Or if you have an interrupting motion, and I want to be clear on this, if you're just not sure what's happening, that's an interrupting motion. If you need to raise your hand and ask a question and say, you know, what's going on or what's happening or need more info, that is an interrupting motion because we want to make sure that everybody is able to participate and everybody knows what's happening at any given moment. And then also, you know, if you feel a rule is being broken or violated, that is also an interrupting motion. Or if, you know, one of our speakers, you're not able to hear them, that can be an interrupting motion as well. Sometimes it turns out that it is your individual internet connection causing the problem. Sometimes it's not. And so it is good to raise your hand and just ask that question, because if everybody is experiencing the same issues hearing a speaker, we want to make sure that speaker has, you know, equal opportunity to address our membership. So just want to make people aware of that. All right. And I'm not seeing any hands up for after Nathan's spiel there. Thank you very much, Nathan. Very thorough as usual. Appreciate it. And we're going to continue on with our agenda. So up next is our consent agenda, which includes approval of today's agenda as well as approval of the February regular membership meeting minutes. For those of you that are new, if we approve the consent agenda, we have approved adopting today's agenda as well as approving our regular membership meeting minutes in a single vote. Sometimes additional items of business will appear under the consent agenda, but that's how it works. And if you wish to divide and say, I want to consider, you know, something separately, all you have to do is raise your hand and we'll just divide it and move that item down on the agenda. So that being said, are there any objections to adopting our consent agenda, which includes today's agenda, as well as approval of the February 17th, 2026 regular membership meeting minutes? Are there any objections? Are there any objections? All right, I'm not seeing any hands, which means that we have approved our consent agenda. Thank you, everybody. All right, so up next, 2026 State Convention overview and delegate election updates. We went over most of this at our last meeting, but what has occurred since then is we have actually elected all of our delegates and alternates. And so I'm going to just share that information really quickly here as we go through it. I believe all of you should see the list. So we have automatic delegates, which are myself. I was also elected to be our delegation chair this year. Vice Chair Lisa Rivera. Yaz Cater is another automatic delegate. He has also been elected to represent us on the platform committee for the state party work this year. Tara Gallagher, who is also elected to represent us on the rules committee. David McDonald is an automatic delegate as a DNC rep, as is Governor Bob Ferguson due to the office he holds. Same with Senator Valdez, Representative Paulette, and Representative Farivar. Aidan Carroll, Austin Christopherson. I'm going to read off the regular delegates now. Aidan Carroll, Austin Christopherson, Julie Conklin, who was elected to represent us on the Credentials Committee, Garrison Dismore, Hope Fatt, Frank Field, Scott Forbes, Heather Heinickel, Nilu Jenks, Lisa Levy, Shane McCumber, Galaxy Marshall, Sam Mayfield, Emily Merrill, Brandon Monson, Muj Naqvi, who is also our delegation vice chair, Shamik Raj, Layla Salmasi, Yashar Cheyenne, Bethany Stackhouse, Griffin Stouffer, Tamaya Tiani, Pat Tressel, Jessica Trupin, and Cody Zelensky. I apologize if I mispronounce any names there. And then for alternates, we have Jeff Berner, Nika Barrington, Christopher Buckley, Jacob Gannon, Gary Goldbaum, Drake Mackey, Arvia Morris, Kathy Sakahara, Natalie Sanders, and Haley Sexton. So congratulations to all of our delegates and alternates, and also a huge thanks to everyone that ran for the position of delegate for your willingness to represent us. As we did in prior years, we'll be sending out links to the membership, asking for help and review of the state party platform. So we've done that in the past where we've allowed our members to submit platform amendments to our delegation to consider for moving forward to the state party. So ultimately, our delegation would get to decide whether or not they want to submit a platform amendment, but we do open up that process to our membership because many hands make light work. When we can improve, something like the platform, we really try to get as many cooks in the kitchen helping out getting that work done. So yeah, so there's going to be plenty of opportunity for those that ran for delegate that were not elected to continue to participate throughout the process and help influence the party platform, as well as just for our regular members that did not run for delegate for whatever reason. All right, and then just a couple of things to highlight. This is the big timeline that we're looking at. The first committee has already met, and I apologize. I realized the first meeting actually took place yesterday, and I forgot to mention that Layla Salmasi is our elected representative to our the resolutions committee for the state party. So I apologize. I believe she attended her first meeting last night, so resolutions met last night, and I believe that platform will be meeting either tomorrow or next week. I don't have the calendar up in front of me exactly, but Yas Kader will be there to represent us. And the main thing is that the initial committee reports are going to be due April 22nd. So what that means is the final draft of the platform will be available to us on April 22nd. We do have the working draft available to us, so delegates, make sure that you saw your in the invitation email sent by Isabella with the state party. There is a link to that, and I'll be working to try to get that out so our members can also take a look at it and review it, but it is not final yet, so that's just something to keep in mind. The final version will come April 22nd, and then we'll have 1 month to get all of our platform amendments in and submitted, as well as our final resolution. So our delegates are already hard at work coming up with topics for resolutions and helping us to decide where we want to move forward. And then coordination across the state is in progress as far as finding the most effective way for all of the LDs to share what their proposed resolutions are, so we can try to minimize overlap and dual submissions. So that's always been a big challenge. Oftentimes we'll have, sometimes 3 different LDs will have similar resolutions moving forward because they're just unaware and it's issues that affect us all. So I imagine there'll be lots of duplications with regards to ICE and, the illegal conflicts and wars that are being pushed by our executive office right now. So any questions on this so far? I know it's just very high level, but there will be more information being shared out. Arvia, you have a hand up.
Yeah, how do you, if you want to participate on the resolutions or the platform, how do you, I don't think I got any invitations to any meetings. I didn't know the meetings were already happening.
So the meetings are happening with our representatives right now, and then we're going to start kicking off our meetings with our delegation. We'll be sending out a doodle poll, or sorry, I believe it's a when to meet poll to figure out when we can get the most people at those meetings. There'll be another poll going out to the delegation trying to figure out which pillars of the platform they are most interested in working on. And that's important because we want to make sure that, we have a small number of, for instance, delegation members that are Native American. So when we're discussing platform amendments to the pillar relating to tribal sovereignty, that those members are able to participate. So we'll be sending out a poll shortly to our delegation and trying to schedule all those meetings. And then similar to what we did in years prior, Mooj and I met, have been having some meetings, and then also one of the delegation members, Sam, who expressed interest in helping Mooj and I out. Sam, we talked about doing what we did in years prior, which is using a Google form for people to submit platform amendments to. So in any event, that's what we'll be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yep. Pat, you have a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to note Arvia specifically was referencing resolutions, and I was wondering if there is a way for people who maybe domain experts on some of these things could join in on working on resolutions. And Arvia in particular is an expert on environmental stuff.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't do that. I think that would be hugely beneficial, because it would be very much in the same realm of our platform amendments, where ultimately the delegation makes the final say as to what moves forward. But I think it makes sense, especially if we have subject matter experts on things, for those folks to weigh in and provide context and insight and share information. So we'll have to find a path forward to do that. And I think it comes with just good communication and sharing things out, so people can review drafts and provide comments. Does that answer your question, Arvia and Pat? I have to ask you to unmute again if you muted yourself. Okay. All right, great. Okay. Yeah, so once again, for those of you that are delegates and alternates, please make sure you read the welcome packet from Isabella with the state party. That has a lot of great links in there. So, okay. Let's see. Up next, finance report. Lisa Levy. Go ahead and stop sharing.
As of the end of February, we had $6,000 in the bank, which is similar to where we were a year ago at the beginning of the new fiscal year for our LD. We have in our Google Share all the information, including breakdowns of what we pay per month a month, general summary of where expenses have gone and what percentage. Our largest percentage is always the expenses we do with elections, and after that, the infrastructure to keep us going. And all the details of all our expenses are open to our members as well. Can I segue directly into our finance review report, or did you want to ask for questions first?
All right. Yeah, are there any questions? Any questions? Any questions? All right. Go ahead and we'll get the financial review committee report.
Yeah, our financial review committee met twice. The first meeting was to get familiarized with the various documents to be reviewed, namely downloads via the ISP platform that captures donations that we get via ActBlue, and also all of our other transactions. Our internal Excel-based system our entries to the Washington State Public Disclosure Commission, and the monthly bank statements. During the second meeting, 2 of our members presented their preliminary findings and shared their process for reviewing accuracy and compliance. The committee will meet again this coming weekend to wrap up the process and write the review report. That's it.
All right. Any questions for Lisa Levy on that? Okay, seeing none. Moving on our agenda. Thank you, Lisa Levy. Appreciate your work. Committee updates. PCO committee, Doug.
I'm reporting for Mark. He's not able to come this evening. We're making really good progress on the first of 3 goals for the PCO committee. And that first goal is to do what we can to have a PCO represented in each of the 219 precincts in our LD for the next term of office, which begins in December of this year. Everyone should have received a survey asking if you're interested and willing to consider becoming a PCO, and then some background information about what a PCO is involved in order to give the PCO committee the opportunity to figure out which precincts are likely to have a candidate and which precincts we need to do extra effort in finding a member of our association, of our group that lives within that district that might be interested in being a PCO. That survey went out a week or so ago. We're anticipating that for folks that have not responded, that we'll be trying to reach you in some other capacity. We'll be sending another note out, another reminder out, but we'll also be seeking to call or text or email people to be sure that they have received the survey and ask you to start thinking about it. There is a certain degree of pressure on this in that there are 7 weeks. If you're interested in becoming a PCO, you need to there's a 5-day window that you need to self-nominate, and that begins on May 4th. May 4th. So we'll be doing a lot of work in the remainder of March and in early April to encourage folks to think about the possibility of being a PCO. Are there questions at all about what we're working on? Thanks.
Heather has a hand up.
About 40 folks about 40 folks have responded so far, but that's a long ways from 219. Heather?
Hey, Doug, thanks. I just wanted to ask if you could email the link to Nathan Antonio, just in case anyone's in the meeting now and would like to go ahead and respond.
Thank you.
And let us know if you have neighbors too who would like to join us and to be PCOs, because we want to see everybody represented. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks. Good suggestion.
All right. Yep. Thank you very much, Doug. Also, been meaning to follow up with you, but this is information for our PCOs and potential PCOs that want to know. There is a process, I was going to see if you had time to look into with King County elections, that allows people to apply, I believe, as early as April 20th, for those of you that will be traveling internationally and potentially not able to access the online portal to file for PCO at that time. The instructions are extremely vague. All it says is to, contact them. And really the only contact information I can find that seems reliable is it seems like they say postmarked. So it seems to insinuate a letter, but I can't find a form, or if they need to address it to a specific person there. So since you're here, Doug, if that's something you might be able to look into, I'm happy to send you more information if you have more questions for me. But I know I had a couple PCOs reach out to me and I haven't been able to find an answer just yet.
Yeah, have them direct. I know you're really busy, Hunter. Direct them in Mark's direction. Mark certainly is much more facile with the stuff as our committee chair, but I'm happy to respond too. So we'll take that load off your back.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. There is a hand up from Julie Conklin. Julie, do you have a question?
And just in my experience, when I have contacted King County Elections about various, voting related questions, or if I'm going to be out of town, they are incredibly quick, or they have been, with getting back to me, oftentimes in the same day. So if it comes to that, it seems like they're very quick about answering questions.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. All right. Up next, Rules Committee updates. Margaret and Tara.
Hi, yeah, and this is Margaret Shield, and I'm going to do a little update on behalf of myself and Tara Gallagher as the co-chairs of the Bylaws and Rules Committee. And this will be brief, so I know those of you that hear the word rules and your eyes roll back in your heads, this should be really quick. But we just want to let you know that we are working on an annual housekeeping process and want to explain to you what we're doing and how to comment. So we're heading into an election season and a May endorsement meeting. And at this time of year, we often take a look at our endorsement rules to see if anything needs clarification. We want the process to be really easy to understand for our members and for the candidates. So we're not delving into the whole procedure, some of which is defined in the bylaws and other places, but we have found a couple of small wording clarifications that we'll vote on at the April 21st district meeting. And just want to let you know that we will be meeting to discuss those little changes on the 31st on Zoom. There will be a link on the calendar. I'm not sure it's there yet, but on the 46 Dems calendar, if you want to come to the meeting, or you can just send any questions or suggestions you have on our endorsement rules to our email, which is still rules@46dems.org. And that's my update.
All right. Thank you so much, Margaret. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? All right. Seeing none. Up next, Policy Committee. Shane.
Yes. So we did have one proposed resolution. Is Brendan here this evening to speak on behalf of this resolution?
It does not look like it.
Okay, well then I think I am going to need to introduce this one. Give me one quick second here just to double check. But as the introduction, this one was put forward with the intention of I apologize, just 1 second. So, also, Hunter, this is the correct time to speak about it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Or any other updates you had for Policy Committee as well.
So I don't have many other updates. It does look like I'm going to be able to get the final meetings for the 46th policy on the calendar starting in early April. So we can get ours taken care of in time to also have a clear vision for what we want to do going into the convention. So I think that will be helpful for us. But that's my only update as far as the policy portion of it goes. And then to speak to this resolution, it is a resolution calling on our elected officials to end their use of X products, specifically in regards to the fact that the limitations in regards to the product is now resulting in the fact that they're doing absolutely nothing to edit out for very explicit and arguably criminal materials that are being distributed with absolutely no limitations.
All right. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Pat, you have a hand up.
Yeah, is it allowed to speak in favor?
Yes, it is allowed to speak in favor. It is on the agenda, which means we'll be considering it, so it's already on the
Okay.
table if, you know.
Okay. I thought we had moved to that right now.
Yeah.
I can wait till later though.
Oh, no. I think it's been introduced, so it is appropriate to speak in favor of it at this time. Or to raise your hand for an amendment if you'd like an amendment to this. We are considering this as is. So Pat, if you would like to speak in favor of it, you have the floor.
Okay. Just want to note what some other groups have done is they have gotten accounts on Blue Sky in particular. That seems to be now the one that is most accessible versus like Threads or Post or Mastodon. And they keep their X account, but they don't use it. That way they retain the username so that nobody else can take it over. And they have their past history, but they just start posting on Blue Sky instead. Blue Sky is a B Corp. That's a beneficial corporation. It's the closest you can be to a nonprofit and still be a profit earning corporation. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Pat. I myself actually have a question, which is, my understanding looking at this is what you suggested, Pat, is not possible because it actually says suspend use of all X accounts. Is that I'm trying to figure out what exactly the intent is and if Pat, you have a hand up. I know you're tech savvy, so you might have a little bit of information there, but then I'll go to
Yeah.
Paulette next,
What-
who has a hand up.
Just suspend use means just don't interact with the platform anymore. For instance, my X account is in that state right now. I downloaded all my information, and that was the last thing I did there. I don't even go to the platform anymore.
Okay, and so is the understanding that suspending use of your X account mean that you could still use the Mastodon interface by posting on Blue Sky and it just pushes things through X?
No, none of those happen. Blue Sky is an entirely separate platform.
Yes, but
So is Mastodon. They don't use X
they don't use X. Okay.
at all. No, entirely separate.
Okay. All right. I thought that if you have like the Mastodon bridge that it would also post to X. Is my understanding incorrect then?
I assume there are tools, just like there are tools for posting on all social media platforms.
Okay.
But I don't think that's the standard behavior. It certainly is not the standard behavior on Blue Sky.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's been a while since I looked at it. I appreciate you answering those questions for me, Pat. I know you're very tech savvy, so being in the industry. Henry Paulette.
Hi there. Sorry about this. I believe this is a point of information. I think this does depend on how we are defining suspend here. But I know from my day job working for the city council that we're getting a lot of questions about restrictions and loss of public records from doing anything to some of these accounts. So I think I would be helped if there was some clarity around what is meant by suspend in that in the proclamation. In the resolution.
Okay. I am not sure what it means when they say suspend account. I mean, does suspending your account delete it? Are you abandoning it or? I'm just going to see if Pat, if you're able to answer this question. Yeah, thanks, Pat, for raising your hand.
Suspending the account is not a thing. It just means don't use it.
Okay.
There's no process that you can do on Twitter that is called suspending the account.
That's what I thought. It's you can delete your account.
Yes, you can
Okay.
delete it, but that is an excellent point that Henry raised. This is a public records issue. So you don't want to delete your account. Just stop using it.
Okay. And it does look like it just says suspend use and suspend communications campaigns directing recipients to X. So it's basically trying to use other formats, it looks like, without deleting your account. So I think that's my understanding. Does anybody have a different understanding? All right, sorry I took us down that rabbit hole with my own ignorance, looking for clarity myself. Hopefully it answered questions for other folks, but Pat, you spoke in favor of passage as is. Do we have any more speakers in favor or against? All right, I'm not seeing any hands up, which means that we can go to a vote since there's no more discussion on this. Those in favor of passing this resolution, please indicate with a green check mark reaction. Those opposed to passing this resolution, please indicate a no with a red X reaction. And also, please only vote if you have an asterisk at the start of your name for paid member or PCO or, support or something like that. But asterisks only. If you do not have an asterisk at the start of your title, please make sure you're not voting. All right. We currently have 27 green check marks. We just had another change, so I can give people another minute or two to vote. But if you would like this to pass, once again, please indicate so with a green check mark. If not, a red X. All right, we have 52 people in the room, some of whom are guests or non-voting members. We have 28 green check marks. We have 0 red X's, and some number of abstentions. So the resolution passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, up next on the agenda, we have new business. Is there any new business? Does anyone have any new business? Anyone have any new business? All right, having called 3 times for new business and seeing no hands, we're on to good of the order. Does anyone have any good of the order that they would like to share? I see a hand up from Pat Trussell, followed by Julie Conklin, and then Kathy Sakahara. Pat.
Just want to remind folks that No Kings is on March 28th. You can find this by any number of means. If you search for Seattle Indivisible, they will have good links. If you are on Pramila Jayapal's mailing list, you probably have links to sign up. The largest event will be at Cal Anderson Park. And I believe it's scheduled noon to 4. Unfortunately, I don't have that tab open. So if anybody can quickly look that up, that would be fantastic. I just want to warn people that March 28th is also the opening day of the Cross Sound Connection on Link Line 2. Don't expect to ride Link Line 2. In fact, riding Link anywhere on that day is going to be packed totally packed out. So if you are coming over from the east side, for instance, and you want to go to Cal Anderson Park, you might want to take a bus over the top of the lake instead.
All right. Thank you, Pat. That's some good advice. And yeah, good of the order. Julie Conklin.
Yes, I just wanted people to let know about Seattle King County Clinic, whether telling people that might be interested or you yourself. It's a free clinic that takes place every year. It's going to be Thursday, April 23rd through Sunday, April 26th at Seattle Center. No requirements in terms of showing income or immigration status or basically anything. The big draws are mainly free dental care and vision care. People can get glasses. There's also medical care, including physical therapy, dermatology, small procedures, general physicals, women's and trans health care, and it's all absolutely free. So if with somebody's permission, I could send a link for somebody else to post in the chat.
Yeah, if you have links to share with good of the order, please send them to PCO Lisa Levy. And if
I
you just
already put the seattlecenter.org.
Oh, you are so
SK.
quick. I had it all pulled up, but you're quick. Thank you, Lisa.
all right. Thank you, Julie. Kathy Sakahara. Kathy.
Thank you, Hunter. A couple of things I want to share with you. I'm very excited about a upcoming event with Northwest Progressive Institute. I'm sure many of you have heard of them, and if you haven't, you've read their polling results in the Seattle Times. This is a combination advocacy group and public research group I'm very proud to be associated with. They have accomplished amazing things with essentially no budget. And they're having their gala on April 21st. And I just heard today that Teresa Mosqueda will be the MC. They get some very heavy hitting guests there. And I'll also just mention that their founder and executive director, Andrew, is going to be at Hunter's suggestion, is going to be speaking to us next week about some of their recent polling findings. So I think Lisa's going to put the link to the gala in the chat, and if you want to contact me directly, membership at 46LD Dems, with any questions, please do so. And I also want to very quickly tell you that the King County Democrats Lobbying Committee today met with Rod Dembowski, who I like more and more every time I talk to him. And it was just kind of a general overview. But one of the things he said, I even told him I will quote him on this. He said that he considers the Democratic Party, when a new issue comes up, the Democratic Party platform is his guiding light. And I know I've been in some conversations lately where people say, platform doesn't matter, it's just a waste of time, no one looks at it. And he scoffed when he heard me say that. So it absolutely does matter. And on a personal note, I do want to share, after the meeting, I'd asked him about a particular bill, and after the meeting, we were chatting back and forth, and I mentioned to him why the bill was of interest to me on a very personal level, and he responded, he said, "Thank you for sharing your story. I will be a co-sponsor of the bill." That was pretty exciting to me. So, and if anyone wants to hear more details, I will share that in private, but I don't want to take time now. Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you, Kathy, for sharing. Don't forget, it looks like the link to the Northwest Progressive Institute Gala is in the chat. Thanks for sharing that. And also, I have heard some electeds say that they don't bother with the platform. I am glad to know that some of our electeds are following that. I think that that is kind of a baseline for calling yourself a Democrat and following, following the guidance of the party. So I'm happy to hear that Rod is one of our representatives that does do that. Thanks for sharing. Brandon Monson.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to invite everyone tomorrow night to a happy hour being hosted at Hellbent Brewing by FutureWise, and it's to talk about the comp plan. So that'll be super fun. And you also get to meet a City Council District 5 candidate, Nilu Jinx. So yeah, if you're interested in that, should be fun. Hellbent's always a good time. And yeah, it looks like Lisa had posted that in the chat.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Aiden.
Hi. We passed the resolution last September in support of the UW 33, who have now this month been charged with misdemeanors for the protest last year on May 5th. If you want to get involved in supporting that, there's ways to do that. Contact me. It's been convenient to hear the Seattle Times being forced by this latest war to write about Boeing involvement with the war crimes industry. And on that note, there are protests various times tomorrow and the next day against the Defense Suppliers Summit at the Convention Center downtown, where folks like Boeing and Lockheed Martin will be, meeting people who they sell weapons to. Some of that's on social media. A lot going on. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, Aiden. Really appreciate it. Any other good of the order before I close us out with good of the order? Any other good of the order? Any other good of the order? All right, I'm not seeing any. I just really want to thank all of our volunteers that made the meeting run smoothly tonight, all of our volunteers that run our committees and chair our committees. We have committee chairs and co-chairs that are not on our executive board, like Mark Auerbach and Margaret Shield. I might be missing a couple of others. I apologize if I am, but really appreciate you folks. You really help us run the org. Also, just want to thank our representatives and state senator who joined us this evening to provide us with a legislative update. That was really wonderful to hear. And I believe in transparency. And I during this meeting tonight, during the financial review, I realized like, oh, shoot, we failed to get a budget ready. And I apologize. With the arrival of our son in January, things have been kind of sliding and I can see my sleep slipping into this. So I do want to apologize to that, but we'll be adopting an interim budget just for the first couple of weeks of April that basically will be allowing us to just keep operating costs alone. So expect a budget vote in April. So want to point that out. And I just want to take ownership and responsibility for that lack of oversight on my part. So look forward to a budget vote in April. Once again, thank you to everybody and thank you for all the work behind the scenes and really appreciate all of you. That being said, having come to the end of our meeting, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Heather, you have your hand up.
Hi, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I
All
will
right.
second that.
Moved by Heather Heinekel at 8:58 p.m. Seconded by, was that Kathy Sakahara?
Yes.
All right. Is there any objections to adjourning? Any objections to adjourning? Any objections to adjourning? All right, hearing none, we are hereby adjourned at 8:58 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate you. Have a wonderful night.